So Adam Armstrong's winner means that Saints return to the Premier League for the first time of asking. 1-0 the final score in the playoff final at Wembley. Steve, have you recovered? Yeah, I think I saw a picture of you drinking Jaeger bombs at about 11:30.
I think it was earlier than that. Yeah, I'm okay. I'm just tired, very, very tired now. Yeah, it was a long old day, wasn't it, for pretty much everybody, I think. But yeah, I mean, what a day for everybody. I think, given where we were a year ago, I think if you kind of said to me, right, you're gonna beat Leeds in a Wembley playoff final to go straight back up, I think I'd have probably laughed in your face. And yet here we are, everybody with hangovers, and now actually looking forward to weirdly looking forward to the next season in the Premier League, even though I think, let's be honest, it's going to be a tough old year. I mean, depending on what we do in the transfer market and how recruitment goes and that sort of thing. But yeah, let's live in the moment. It's been a terrific couple of weeks, really. Sort of basically since the last league game against Leeds, really, where I think we went into that one with a whole heap of trepidation given the 3 games previous. And credit goes to the management and the players. They've absolutely nailed it ever since that. And I think barring probably the first 10 minutes and maybe the last 10 minutes at Wembley, I think we were probably good value for it, to be honest.
Glen, how was your day yesterday? Where were you? Where were you sat? What was going on? Did you enjoy it? What time did you get there?
I know exactly what you're getting at here. We got to we had the public transport lottery with the train. That was looked like it was going to be a little bit of a delay, but we got to Waterloo and across to Wembley sort of like pretty early. But we chose to go into the ground quite early, actually, because the queues in the pubs and the fan zones were ridiculous, and we just couldn't be bothered with it. So we went into the ground and had a nice quiet drink where you could walk up to the bar and go to the toilet afterwards. There was absolutely no problem at all. So yeah, quite enjoyed that side of things. Got into the ground and I was on the second tier. Sort of opposite the Royal Box. So
these were your lucky seats, weren't they? Because haven't you've watched Saints before at Wembley behind the goal and we've not won. So you resulted exactly the JTP trophy.
Yeah, there was an element of it was an element of that. But no, mate, mainly I just thought, it's a Wembley final. Let's splash a bit of money and go for it. So having splashed a bit of money, I was somewhat disappointed to find that literally 3 yards behind us, a hospitality box full of Leeds fans. So, so that wasn't great. But the only time it was really irritating was at the start. When the atmosphere was building and the DJs were playing the various anthems of the clubs and whatnot. And so we had a full rendition of "Marching On Together" from 5 yards behind us, which was slightly annoying and did wind up quite a few people. But yeah, so I was there with my son and my dad, and I was trying to be the adult in the room and say, just ignore him, just look at the pitch and watch the game. And then we scored, and they had to hold me back, to be honest, because it was all hand signals and swear words that my mother wouldn't have liked, and all this sort of stuff. So it was, but after that, they all shut up. Literally nothing, not a peep, not for the rest of the game. And to be fair, at the end of the game, I thought, I'm going to have a look. This is going to be amusing. Let's just see what they're like. And they were kind of just stood there quietly, sort of like taking it in, whilst all their mates, the proper Leeds fans who probably paid for their tickets, sort of like left the ground. So yeah, it actually added to the occasion a little bit. It brought a little bit more jeopardy to it. But I think, I don't think it's great. Hospitality is a bit of a anathema to me. I'm not a fan of it, and it's when when you have opposition fans seated directly behind you, it's not fantastic and not what you expect at what is basically a showpiece cup final. But all's well that ends well. but it might not have ended particularly well if we'd lost. But there you go. We didn't, so we move on.
And Alfie, how was your day? It must have been a long day for you.
Yeah, I think I've said to a few people now, but I think it's probably up there one of the best days of my life, just from start to finish. The atmosphere after was obviously just fantastic. We spoke to so many players, obviously spoke to the manager, spoke to so many of the staff, and everyone was just obviously on cloud nine. And you start to see a side to the players which you haven't really seen, previously in the season, and obviously today with the promotion party as well. The side that I'm referring to is Adam Armstrong, who turned up on stage after at least 20 odd beers and was absolutely bollocks. And I've spoken to him a lot in the last couple of years, and he's never like that before. But I think it was fantastic, and I'll state the obvious because Steve and Glen haven't yet, but they absolutely deserved the performance. The performance was brilliant. They deserved the result. The managers set the team up well. The players delivered, and I think in that game it was always going to be about who can just handle the occasion and keep their nerve. And I don't know when I thought it was going to happen, because for most of the second half I couldn't breathe. My chest was tight. I was just a bag of nerves, trembling quite literally. But then I think a moment came where maybe it was after they hit the crossbar, and then they just started giving the ball away in silly areas, and they started running out of play, and they didn't look the same team. And I just thought this is going to be their day. And still, the 10 minutes added on was the longest 10 minutes of my life. But the scenes of all the players just sprinting across the pitch towards the 37,000 Saints fans was something that I'll genuinely never forget. And my favourite interview at full time was Jack Stevens, because he was literally in tears as he was speaking to me and George, quite literally in tears in his eyes and threatening to sort of stream down his face as he spoke about the ups and downs of the season. And he's obviously had a bit of stick from people, but he is the leader of this team, and it was just fantastic. It made me emotional talking to him, and they all deserve it. So proud of them, and well done.
Amazing. My heart rate, I could feel the heart in my chest with about 10 minutes to go. It was just like, oh my God, come on, just 10 minutes. Let's talk a little bit about the game, Steve. I mean, the unchanged team from the West Brom win, no real surprise there. Lots of stuff about whether Che would be fit. I don't think any of us really expected him to come back in, but seemed to work out all right in the end.
Yeah, it was fine for the most part. I mean, slow start. First 10 minutes, we were all over the place, and a little bit lucky that while Leeds were bright and sharp and at it, the sum total of that was 2 shots from distance, one of which dribbled wide at about 5 mile an hour, and one which rolled into McCarthy's arms at about 5 mile an hour. So, we weathered that sort of little bit of a storm whilst the clouds gathered overhead. And then once the sun came out, we settled down and got down to business. And it was, the remainder of that first half was very good. And I mean, arguably could have been 2 up with the second Armstrong chance right on half time, where Medlier makes a good save, but there's nobody following in, and that is probably where a fit Che Adams, if he was starting, would have been in position for a tap in there. I mean, based on this season, not wholly convinced he'd have scored it, but yeah, that was probably the one other big chance. Smallbone's free kick was a fairly comfortable save, I thought. A couple of other sort of blocked half attempts before we took the lead as well. So it wasn't as if the goal was a complete smash and grab. I mean, I saw a couple of places describing it as against the run of play. It was like, it wasn't really. But I mean, you kind of have to frame all of this in the sort of in the position of kind of every national media outlet is reporting this from a Leeds perspective. We're not the story in town here. And so from that perspective, obviously it's even more satisfying the way it's ended. Second half again started slowly, gave the ball away a lot, and actually I thought for most of the second half we were really poor in possession, which is kind of unlike us. But I think that's part of that is the occasion taking hold. It was pretty hot when you're in the sun. I kind of wouldn't ever usually feel this way, but I actually kind of felt a little bit sorry for all the Leeds fans down that end, because they must have been absolutely roasted with the sun beating down on them for the whole of that second half. But I mean, defensively, that was probably our best performance, arguably the best performance of the season defensively, because every single cross that came into the box, we were there first. And I mean, it's been a very long time since we've been able to say that. defending from crosses has been a weak point for years. And yeah, in this game, a lot of crosses came in, partially because we kept giving away stupid free kicks in wide areas. But we dealt with everything. And I mean, other than the Dan James effort that hit the bar, Leeds haven't looked like scoring. And I mean, everyone's saying, "Oh, Leeds haven't turned up again," but no. I mean, frankly, it's. I mean, we've played Leeds twice in the space of 3 weeks, and we've shut down their top players on both occasions. That's not a fluke.
Yeah.
That's not Leeds not turning up in those 2 games. That's we've had a defensive plan for specific players, and we've shackled them. I mean,
Should say, Steve, though, I mean, Somerville, by every metric, is the Championship's most creative player by a long way.
Yeah,
And, like you said, he's done nothing against Carl Peters twice.
Yeah,
3
and
times.
I mean, I find it. I mean, even though we obviously had the plan and we shackled those individual players, I still found it extraordinary that Farke took Nonto and Somerville off, because you think, well, okay, yeah, they're being shackled now, but it only takes a moment of lapse. And I mean, let's be honest, we've seen. I mean, this is a defence that's conceded more than 60 goals this season. There's a lapse in this team. So you'd have thought keeping those better players on would have been the option, but
leaving Perot on as well. He was dreadful.
He had a bad game.
Yeah.
But I mean, it just didn't get in the ball really for the most part. So he had to come looking for it. But I mean, we had an issue second half in that there wasn't really an outlet. Adams came on and unfortunately showed why he wasn't in the team in the semi-final. Because he just wasn't sharp at all. So yeah, that was frustrating, and it meant that kind of pushed us back probably another 5 yards or so. But ultimately, we rode it out, and in relative comfort, I suppose, given the 12 minutes of injury time added. Which, in fairness, was reasonable. A couple of injuries. I mean, the Walker Peters and Dan James thing. I mean, football still. I mean, I say this every time there's a big head injury. Football still has a terrible problem with concussion. I mean, there's surely absolutely no way that those 2 players didn't have some sort of concussion. I mean, you saw Walker Peters' positional sense in injury time was all over the place. Like he was constantly like about 20 yards further forward than he needed to be, and that didn't look like it was by design. So yeah, something for the authorities to think about. Obviously they won't, but all in all, amazing day. And I mean, when that final whistle finally went, I mean, one other thing on the final whistle moment, I can't believe that the keeper has put a free kick into the mixer, if you like, from their half, and Harwood Bellis has got a free header with nobody within 5 yards of him to head it away. It's like, how does that happen? I mean, you wouldn't have that against a non-league side if you were playing them. It was absolutely extraordinary.
It was the longest 11 minutes of our lives, though.
Yes, very much so. Yeah, I was gripping that the safe standing rail in front of me ever tighter as those 11 minutes were going on.
It was a great afternoon for the wing backs, though, Glenn, wasn't it? Carl Walker Peters, Ryan Fraser, absolutely doing their job, and just doing exactly what they were set out to do. They both had a really great game. Yeah,
it's interesting. There's been a lot of talk, obviously, usually dismissed by the national media, as Steve was saying earlier, about us winning the 2 league games, and everyone was going, "No, it's not relevant. It's not relevant." It entirely was, because I reckon Somerville went out there knowing he wasn't going to get anything out of Walker Peters. He tried a couple of showboaty things in the first half, didn't really come off, and that was the end of him. So I think Walker Peters had a brilliant game against him. Didn't get forward as much as I would have liked him to against the clown they've got a left back, Firpo. So we didn't put him under as much pressure as I would have liked. But defensively, Walker Peters was outstanding. And I'm glad you mentioned Ryan Fraser, because he was brilliant. I just thought he was absolutely outstanding. You know, he's obviously been told, "Look, mate, you're not going forward. You're playing as a left back. Make sure you stay there." And whenever I've mentioned about the possibility that Ryan Fraser might be playing basically a left back, people were sort of writing it down and going, that could be a little bit dodgy. But he was excellent, and I just the amount of effort he put in what is basically not a natural position for him. But maybe that's his role going forward. Maybe he will be put in as a wing back more often, because I would think going forward, there's a lot of ifs here. If we sign him, and with the, we'll probably keep that formation next year, or it'll certainly be one we'll play a lot more than we have this year. So I love the performance of the wing backs, and everybody sort of like dovetailed, really, that it's not just Walker Peters, it's Howard Bellis as well on that side, sort of like stopping Somerville cutting inside, which is all he wants to do. And the same, and we handled Nonto out on the other side a lot better than we did in the league game up there, because that was the one area where they that we were a little bit dodgy in that game. Ryan Manning had a tough time against Nonto, but I thought both Stevens had a dodgy first sort of 5 minutes with a couple of stray passes, but after that he settled into the game and was excellent. And Fraser kept Nonto quiet, and he just resorted to throwing himself about, really, and hoping to get free kicks. And he had a couple of embarrassing ones where he threw himself on the ground. The referee didn't give a free kick, and then he had to kind of sheepishly try and get to his feet when no one was looking. He did that a couple of times. It's just like, get on with the game, mate. Tactically, I think a lot of people's eyebrows would have been raised when they saw Ryan Fraser picked, but I thought the wee man did a brilliant job out there.
Yeah, we knew.
On Ryan Fraser, I've had a lot of Bournemouth fans in my mentions today, because I said that he's a great character, and obviously I know they had their disagreements with him. We've been through this a million times.
We did as well, didn't we? We weren't sure.
Yeah, but look, you can only go off of what's in front of you, I think, in my opinion. And this season, as Glen has just said, Ryan Fraser has put in as much as anybody. He's one of the fittest players in the squad. He looks like he's up for every single time, and you have to remember that he's playing for somebody who he really respects and likes in Russell Martin. He's done so many different roles, and I, for one, will be very pleased if they can get it over the line when they go for him, because I don't think he's necessarily a starting Premier League player at this point, but he's certainly an option in multiple different positions, and he will be useful in this squad. And I've got no evidence to suggest that he's got a bad attitude anyway. I think every time we've spoke to him, every time you see him on the pitch, I think he's given everything. A lot of credit for Ryan Fraser.
I don't know if you saw the interview with Neil Warnock. Gave an interview afterwards where he talked about the things he'd been chatting about to Russell Martin, and one of them was, how did you get Ryan Fraser to tackle like that? So he was really impressed with him. And let's face it, Neil Warnock's been around, even if he's not everyone's cup of tea. So
he knows how to get promoted out of the Championship, if nothing else.
Well, actually, Neil Warnock,
you had a word with him, didn't you?
This is the best moment of my life. This is why it's the best day of my life. I love Neil Warnock. I've got a lot of respect for him as a manager. Obviously, I think he's just a funny character, and football needs those people. And he was just walking across the mix zone at the end of the game, and I just shouted, Mr. Warnock twice. He ignored me. So Neil, and he came over, thankfully, very kind.
Could have called him Colin. He responds better.
Yeah, true. And I just said to him that I think you'd seen my article about obviously the Russell Martin Chinese thing, and Russell Martin talking to me about it, and he then gave him the menu and stuff. So I gave him thanks for that, and he'd obviously had a bit of a chat about it. But yeah, it was just amazing to talk to him. To be fair, like a rare fan moment, I suppose. He's obviously a lot of respect for him, but yeah, he's been funny, and he's spoken well about Saints this season. So he's been a good pundit.
There was a lot made, Steve, obviously in the run-up to the game about the relationships between the two managers. And, yesterday, Russell Martin's tactics, I just felt were a bit too much for Daniel Farke. He got it absolutely spot on, and he would have been more pleased with that than anybody.
Well, he's nailed it 3 times, hasn't he? And frankly, it's not even been a contest from a tactical perspective. Ultimately, Leeds, realistically, in all 3 games they just didn't get near us in the first game, did they, at St Mary's? But the 2 recent ones were obviously much tighter affairs, but ultimately Leeds' system relies so heavily on a moment of magic from any of the 4 front guys. But if you shackle them and cut off the supply line to them, then tactically we had it nailed, and ultimately we took the one real big chance that came in the whole game, really. I think if it was somebody other than a Dozy on the end of the second half chance that he had, then maybe that's a similarly big chance. But I think Armstrong in that situation, more or less one-on-one with the keeper, you would back him 9 times out of 10 in that position at Championship level. It's weird that you put the same player in in the same position that Premier League, and you're not quite as convinced. It's a real strange scenario, isn't it? But I mean, that's a next season problem, isn't it? I suppose.
Yeah, there's a few of those, isn't there? Alfie, Taylor, Harwood Bellis is looking like a bit of a bargain as well for 20 million quid. I assume that's all gone through now, is it? That's kind of done.
Yeah, can I interrupt one thing? So Daniel Farke, obviously Russell Martin insisted there's nothing personal there. Well, I'll show you an image from full time. That looks personal. So yeah, I don't know if he's had us on there. Taylor Harwood Bellis. Yeah, I spoke to Taylor after the game as well. Yeah,
he was loving it more than anybody.
Yeah, that's officially done now. So he's Southampton's player for the good fee of £20 million. I think that's the sort of money that you can't afford to spend on a centre back if you're a Championship team. But as a Premier League team, I think that's bordering on a bargain. Russell Martin said that he thinks he'll go on to play for England. Taylor Harwood Bellis said that he's just so delighted that he knows where he is now, because he wanted a Premier League move last season. Let's be completely honest. Southampton wouldn't have been his first choice, but he never got that move. Burnley obviously didn't go for him for whatever reason. And he's got it now. He had this contract lined up. It's already signed. He will become a Southampton player on July the 1st, and he's delighted about it. And he's so delighted that he didn't make it to the promotion party today for personal reasons. If anyone follows him on Instagram, you know why there's personal reasons.
Driving the porcelain bus, I think.
So him and Ryan Manning, they're both mad as boxer frogs, I think. Ryan Manning made it to the party, to be fair.
It's just nice to see someone enjoying themselves as well. Glen, we're kind of running out of players to talk about, but I guess we ought to talk about the midfield as well, like Flynn Downs and Will Smallbone, Joe Aribo, because they all put a shift in too.
They did massively, and whilst, as Steve said earlier, they probably didn't have their best game sort of with the ball. There was a definite discipline there to make sure they didn't get strung out, they didn't get caught in front of the ball, and made sure that the defence had some protection. And this goes all the way back to the Daniel Farke, Russell Martin thing, because Leeds, in my opinion, we beat them twice earlier on because we dominated the midfield. They only had 2 players in there, we had 3, and the goal comes directly from that midfield, because Smallbone gets himself free. It should be a midfielder marking him. Obviously, there isn't one. So Ampadu comes out of the defence like he's playing bloody whack-a-mole or something. It's like, and he's right out on his own. Ball goes through his legs. He appeals for offside, and the rest of the defence is 15 yards behind him. And that was a tactical win, and that was another one for our midfield to chalk up, because it was Downs playing the ball to Smallbone, and then Smallbone finding the pass. So yeah, I thought that, and then you can't always play every game free flowing football, and we were calling on earlier on in the season for us to be a little bit more pragmatic at times, and that comes from the midfield. If the midfield's all bombing forward and we're losing the ball with 5 players ahead of the ball, then there's a problem. But we seem to have learned on the job, and certainly demonstrated it since that Leeds away game in the league, that we can win another way. And the midfield is a massive part of that. I think the whole way Russell Martin plays depends on the midfield. If we've seen what happened when Flynn Downs isn't there, and we've seen what happens when we don't get the situation right with covering the defence. But I thought everyone in there did a job, and everyone had the heart to do it. It was a real. A lot of the media has been, very Leeds-centric, as you say, but I read a bit written by a guy called John Newsom, who people might not remember, but he used to play for Leeds in sort of like the 90s. And he came out with a very good point. He said, regardless of the ability of the players, every Southampton player would have done anything to win that game. And he said there were 4 or 5 on the Leeds side that just didn't have the heart for it. And he's probably speaking from a position of extreme disappointment, but I thought that was a really interesting comment on the mentality of our players. And you're talking about the midfield, Smallbone and Aribo, they probably see themselves basically as attack-minded players, but they were prepared to do the hard work to make sure that we held on to that 1-0. And at the end of the day, yesterday's game was all about winning. That's it. We won. End of. And the performance of those midfield players and the discipline that they showed was a major part of that.